Welcome to David's Rebel Coding Podcast. So, I just uncovered something amazing that I'd like to share with you. So, if you are a business owner and you were thinking of starting up an online shop or extending your online presence, and you wanted to create a web application where you can do secure transactions, I just wanted to show you what tech companies do behind the scenes when you contract them out to build a web application. So, we're going to start a timer and just go through the process of what a professional web application development company would do to create a web application in a modern way in 2026 using a technology called Java Extendable Templates. So let's take a look at how that works. The first thing I want to do if I'm creating a wine store and I want to sell bottles of wine online is I want to upload the images. So I'm going to go ahead and drag those into the upload file screen, and that'll just upload my assets into the web server so that we can display those on our screen. So let me start the timer and see how long this takes. And then I might go to Google and ask for some kind of a template. So I'm going to use a wine card template that Google has kind of generated for me. I'm going to go to my website builder, and this shows you how a template literal embedded JavaScript works. So basically within the DOM, the HTML templates that you're building to create this web page, you're basically going to loop through your array of JSON objects. So if you don't know what JSON is, it's just a way of representing data in JavaScript that's very popular and widely used. So here we're going to define our JSON format with an ID, a title, a description, and a price. So this is the information that we want to display on our page. Then once I have that data set up, then I can just plug it in to my JXT file and then display it on the page. So here's the CSS for the wine card. So I'm just going to go ahead and set that up. So that just comes from what Google gave me for my template. And you can basically choose any template or CSS that you want. We also have access to the Bootstrap library, which can make our web application mobile friendly and work on phones or desktop devices. So let's paste that in here. And ours is called title, not type. So I'm just going to change it to title. And then if I save that, you'll see it does a hot fix and shows those bottles of wine. These are the ones that we did upload. But I actually want to change the template and use one that shows the actual images that we uploaded. So I'm going to uncomment this one and just remove the one that I showed you as a demonstration of how the syntax works. And the other nice thing about HTML and the way that it was invented in the early 90s was that you can add JavaScript. And so by adding JavaScript, what it will enable us to do is put interactivity with our users, and that was the purpose of JavaScript. So while you have the DOM to display the bottles of wine and the information that you want to show, like the price and the title and the description, you have the buttons that the JavaScript uses to be able to have the user interact and select and then update things on the screen. And you see that the performance is really good. It's showing instant response back. It used to be back in the 90s, when you wanted to do some sort of functionality like this, often you would leave the page and then have to rebuild the entire page all over again. And that caused some user frustration. And we've gone to a more reactive UI responsive web application designs that are mobile friendly and work on multiple platforms, different desktop environments, whether you're Windows or Linux or you're on a mobile phone. So to implement that functionality in this JXT template, we're using vanilla JavaScript. So you don't actually have to learn the system. It's using vanilla JavaScript. So in exactly the same way that you would write JavaScript, you used exactly the same syntax. The only difference is that because you are scoped within a custom control, then instead of accessing document.querySelectorAll, you have to use this.document to get the shadow root element and then querySelectorAll from there, because it's all protected within the scope of the custom control. But other than that, it's exactly the same as what you would normally do with JavaScript. And that is actually JavaScript. JavaScript language has custom controls, and this just supports that paradigm. So what we're going to do, we have two functions. One is to purchase the wine, and one is to remove the wine. So all that happens in that is that we update this shopping cart array, and we push the new JSON object if they select a new one. The other thing that we do is we get the JSON data, we serialize it embed it into the HTML itself using event.target dataset JSON data. So let's go take a look at when we render that particular wine element. We encode it first so that any special characters will transmit flawlessly through the system. And then we just give it a data attribute. So for example, we just gave it a data dash and then JSON data with the encoded wine, which is the JSON wine representation of that particular wine bottle, so that the system doesn't get confused which bottle of wine the user picked. You know with absolute certainty that it is the one that came from the database. Then we want to integrate with Stripe and create an invoice page. So we're going to do exactly the same thing we did on this page, but on the invoice page, instead of getting the database from our inventory that came from the database, so the database returned an array of JSON objects through an application programming interface, and we just showed you how to bind that to create your web page so the user can interact with your bottles of wine, add them to the shopping cart. Now on the invoice, we want to show exactly the same thing, only in a different format. We just show all the individual prices with the tax and total so the user can check out and pay. Now, Stripe integration requires a secure connection, so you need an HTTPS, which means you would have had to purchase a secure, an SSL certificate, register with your domain company that you used to buy the domain name, and then you have to install it on the server, and then you can have access to HTTPS functionality and be able to use the Stripe payment. Now we've all done that for you, so you don't have to do anything in that regard. It's all handled. So let me just switch over from my development environment and go to the secure server where I already have that set up. So if I go to the same page that we've just been creating and go through that process where we just pick those bottles of wine, it's going to reload. So I've just got 4 showing on the production server, and so the user goes and picks whichever bottles of wine they want to buy. They go to the checkout, and then I'm just going to illustrate on the top of the screen they have a chance to deselect individual bottles of wine, and then it's got the total with the tax. And let me load the code. So I'm going to click invoice, which is the code for the invoice, and we're going to go down, and what happens here, again, it's using vanilla JavaScript. In the handle payment, what we do is we grab the selection of checkbox items, and then we just look for the attributes for the price and the ID of that particular item, and then we're going to do an ordinary fetch to our secure Java web application that will handle the integration for us automatically. So let me click Pay Now to walk you through it. So we're going to do a handle payment. It's going to translate the bottles of wine. So with the IDs, I've got 3 with the same ID, so that represents your product ID, and then the price has been converted into cents. So I've just moved the decimal place over 2 decimal points, and this is what Stripe is going to use to handle the payment. I'm going to click OK. It's showing you that it's going to send to our Java Secure HTTPS website to handle the Stripe integration. And then the Stripe integration is actually going to generate a checkout URL that we're going to re-navigate with a session ID to handle that securely for us. So actually we don't have to do anything. And this is what you're going to pay a little bit of a fee. I'm recommending Stripe because it's one of the lowest fees in the market to handle payments, certainly lower than what a big company like Amazon might be charging. So let me click OK. And then we go to this. So let's say Donald Duck is here and he wants to buy this wine. So we're going to put in some fictitious card just to do this payment. I want to show you the process of making the payment. Now Stripe is going to handle this, and it's going to come back with either success codes or error codes depending on whether the card went through and got processed. So Stripe is going to handle the payment. It was like if you had Foursquare or something like that. You do have to pay a little bit for the service, but you can trust that they're professional and they handle the payments for you. That's why PayPal and Elon Musk had become successful in the early years, was he had figured out how to do that integration. We're going to use Stripe. And then what happens is Stripe will re-navigate back to whatever URL you want to give it with the session ID. And it is from this session ID that we can then get the payment details about whether it was successful or not. In this example, I've re-navigated back to the screen if they want to continue shopping and buy some more things or not. And that is the entire integration of creating an online shopping cart web application in 10 minutes or less. So let me stop the timer. And then I went on to ask Google, like, how much would it cost realistically in the United States to build an application using Java that integrated a shopping cart web application? And what Google came back with was that, first of all, it should take between 3 and 9 months is what the estimate says. And the cost, this was the further question I asked. Here's the cost, would be between, when I included Java, it increased the price to $40,000. So let me just re-ask this question in a new tab, just to show you. That it comes up with $40,000 to over $150,000. So what we've just demonstrated that behind the scenes, when a tech company gets your order to build a web application for you, they can actually literally achieve the goal in roughly 10 minutes. And the cost that they realistically charge you is between $40,000 and $150,000. Now you are then billed for how long it takes. So they put in estimates between 3 and 5 months with different kind of personas that have been assigned for the particular project. So you have to pay obviously for the company infrastructure and the professionalism and the overhead and the bureaucracy and just having them build the web application for you. But behind the scenes, this is what the company on a technical level is basically doing to build the web application. So I just wanted to expose, because this is David's Rebel Coding Podcast, and I've been in the industry working undercover for 20 years, and I'm just showing you that behind the scenes, this is how it's done. And the levels of complexity and integrations and technical jargon and business terminology that's applied to this simple task is a lot of the overhead that goes into actually making the product. So just in case you didn't know how it's done and you wanted to know, and how realistically how long or what happens behind the scenes that tech companies do to make this product, then you might not want to pay $40,000 to $70,000 and wait 3 to 6 months and be burdened with that kind of a bill. If you're a small business owner and you want revenue streams, or you want a little bit of freedom in your life and you want to be able to earn some income, and you have some value that you want to share with the world, then this would be a way that you could preserve your agency and continue to make choices, keep your money, and start earning your own income. When you sign up with something like Amazon Marketplace, yes, they do connect you to the world, but you have to pay a fee of something like 35%. Profits go to the company itself. Now, if you're willing to hustle and do your own marketing, so if you have a network already in your local community and you need to build a web application, I'm here to say that you could use Gen API, for example, to build your own store brand your own way. You can build your brand the way that you want, preserve your own integrity, save your money, and start making money today. So if you're interested in this sort of a concept, and it only takes 10 minutes is what we showed in this demo. So if you like this video and you want to learn more content like this, just like and subscribe and join my channel. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for your time.